stupid.
Yeah, we can always edit anything out.
So that no,
I'm guaranteed to say at least one or two.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine.
So one of the things interesting, and what you're saying is really, it's a big job what you're trying to do, but it's fascinating because I am a pretty contentious guy, let's just say, and I like a good argument. I'm opinionated. I'm a strong. But I remember one day thinking a lot about the fact that it is true. No matter how smart we are, if we get into an argument, we haven't studied. We don't know. We haven't read research. We've heard from somebody who's heard from somebody, whether, and then we have the sources that just hit us, and whether you're a Fox person or a CNN or an MSNBC, or if if you think you're really cool and you got some other sources that you go to. And I remember what struck me very interestingly in the beginning of the whole COVID thing. You're listening to these hearings, and you're hearing the head of the CDC, we're talking about the people who are supposed to make the decisions, who we're not, but they are making the decisions that are affecting our life so dramatically.
Yep.
And every time they're questioned, almost to a person, it didn't matter what side you were on, their answer always was, well, the experts that we have talked to have told us X. And it hit me in the head. I said, not one of these people referenced anything that they had read, any study they had researched, anything that they had really delved into. And I said, wait a minute, these are the people who are running the show. And hey, an assistant can do that. An assistant can, you could take a college student and go sit there and talk to experts. You don't need, a PhD level person who's an executive making decisions for hundreds of millions of people to be talking to experts. You should be the expert. You should be someone who's actually read and literally turned all the available information inside out. And that's where you're talking from. So I guess it hit me. I said, oh, I'm not the only one with this problem. I just think that we have fallen into this as a society. So when you say the why, I really get it, because nobody knows the why. Even the most important people, they're right away telling you, I don't have a why. I spoke to someone who claims to have a why. And that's my why. Your why is somebody else's why. That's kind of pathetic.
Yeah.
So, and when I remember, so what you're trying to do resonates, and I just think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
If you can crack that code, it's.
Well, yeah, I hope. And this experiment probably won't be the final crack in it, but hopefully there'll be some good learnings that come out of it. Stacey, do you want to say anything by way of intentions, or what you'd like to see come out of this?
My intention is just to help you do what we just talked about. And I chose Zev because he's somebody that we're usually on opposite sides of issues, but I always found him to be very reasonable. So.
Got you fooled.
It's him.
Well, that's awesome. So I can go ahead and kind of dive in on some ways I think this can go, but like I said, this is an experiment. So if any of these kind of like ideas on how we can manage this kind of deep conversation, we'll need to pick a topic, which can be a long thing in and of itself. But just to give you an idea on what I'm thinking for the process of how we engage, and there's lots of ways we could do this. So I'm going to just throw one out, and if any of them sounds onerous or annoying, then we can tweak that. But what I was thinking is that that this is a system where you're kind of adding in facts. So you'd be putting in, it could be as simple as a news article, or like Zev was saying, it could be a a scientific paper or anything like that, or just a reason, right? We everyone knows this, but maybe you're not considering it. So, but generally it would be turn-based, and each kind of team would put in 2 facts, usually a pro fact, supporting your position, and then also a con fact, uh, uh, rebutting something that the other team had said. And then usually I think that it could go as fast as we want, but usually it'd be like you would put 2 in a day, and kind of take turns that way. Was what I was thinking. We could talk about faster or slower if that's annoying. It would be really nice if y'all would be willing to video record yourself kind of like reading the responses from the other person, and then maybe even saying what your response would be, and then we could edit all this into a video later on, but I don't know if that's too much work. And then, yeah, it'd be nice to kind of have maybe a separate meeting with each of you guys to talk about kind of what it's like debating with people, or learning from people, or arguing with people on the internet before this Gulli bot, and then have an interview at the end that says, okay, what was it like in this process? How was it different? Was it better? Was it worse? And what suggestions you'd have to improve this process? And, did it change your perception of the contentious issue we chose as a topic? So those things I'd like to do. Does that all sound kind of reasonable, or do any of those things sound like something you'd rather not participate in?
Sounds great.
Good.
Awesome.
I always I always ask myself whenever I try to, and I debate less and less now than I ever used to. So my question always is, am I really convicted about this? And, or, can my mind be changed?
Mhm.
There are some things you're really convicted about. And some things, but I think people have to be willing to ask that question before they, most people, and most of us don't, it takes, remember, I'm like 56 now, so I'm a little smarter than when I was 46. So, but that's really important. And also, and the other thing is, at one point, I really got tired of debating people who were not smarter than me, because really there's nothing to, in other words, I remember years ago, I'm a Jewish guy, and I remember years ago I had a question for a rabbi, and he brought me into his room and he showed me, like, if you ever go into a typical rabbi's room, there's just books, wherever you see books. And he said to me, he said, listen, I can give you any answer, and maybe it sounds good, maybe it doesn't sound good, maybe I'm a lot smarter than you, so maybe you're gonna, he said, but do you recognize any of these books that you have read, and some, so we have some frame of reference by which you can judge whether what I'm saying to you, has any merit or not. He says, otherwise, I'm just, I'm playing with house money. And that was one of the big moment, my big aha moments. He was extremely right. It's like, here I am arguing a subject that I know very little about. I'm very passionate about it, and I've been very convicted about it because I've grown up a certain way, and that's the ton. So now I try to say that, like, where am I in this? Do I really know a lot about it, that I have strong conviction, and that conviction is well founded, or is it a real opinion? Is it something that I've grown up around, and this is what I think, this is what I feel? But the truth of the matter is, if I had to defend it hard, I just don't, I don't really have, the gestalt to really go there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's really good. That
So
kind
I'm
of,
saying
go ahead.
your approach, I think, would really reinforce that. Because if somebody has to come up with a pro and a con, well, now they
Have
just
to think
can't
it through.
like, well, I feel this, I feel that. Like that's not a pro, that's not a con.
Right. Yeah. And maybe you have to do some research, right?
Oh, God forbid.
Yeah. And
Funny, because now I'm starting to think that maybe I should have come up with two people not as reasonable as me and Zev.
well, yeah. Yeah, we'll see, because it could just fall into, I think it'll be a little bit easier with reasonable people, because like Zev says, unreasonable people start kind of just appealing to emotions. And yeah, and kind of, Zev, to your point, the topics that I choose, like it wouldn't be something like, global warming or something like that. It would be probably an action we have to take together. So a decision. It's so there's two things. One is kind of like a fact check. Like, did this happen? Did mask mandates reduce thing, right? Or should we do something? And we do kind of need, it needs to be very specific. So that's the type of claims we would do, because otherwise it just kind of spirals out of control. So maybe we could talk about some of the things that y'all have found interesting when y'all have been having these conversations online, and see if we can narrow it down to a specific either future action or a claim about what did happen in the past. Do any topics come up that y'all have been already chatting about that's interesting to go deeper in?
Oh, we just had an interesting one, the slap. So someone here is convinced that the slap would not have happened if we would not have had President Trump. That his
see, you're that's not exactly how it came about. Somebody else had said that that's where it all began, that whole way of, so that could be a topic.
Yeah.
I don't really think that's a reasonable topic, in the sense that, how are you going to?
Yeah, it's not very actionable, is it?
That's not really actionable.
But just for the purpose of this recording, you kind of twisted my words.
Well, that's what I'm here to do. I mean, Stacey, I'm here to twist your words, and you're here to make sure I can't twist them.
That you got right.
if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. I think I actually do. I don't know. Let's see what's hot today. Great topic. The swimmer. What's his name? Leah Thomas.
Yeah.
The one who was ranked 400 and something as a male, and now is breaking every record as a female, as a transgendered female. And
it's definitely a difficult topic.
And the women who have been particularly the woman who was displaced off the Olympic team, off the team because of her. And I think the interesting part of the most interesting part of that question is, for the conservatives, that's a really easy. I mean, to us, that's a nothing burger. I mean, it's like it hasn't challenged us at all. But I see from the liberal side, it's thrown a hot potato inside their arena, because here they are, women's rights champions. The women should have equal footing on the sporting stage as the men, should get paid equally, should get recognized equally, and all of a sudden, and then they also champion transgender rights, and all of a sudden, you have this major clash. Like, how do we pick sides? So I'm interested. So I'm so I think from the liberal side, that's a real, that they're having a problem on that one, and on the conservative side, we get to eat popcorn and watch it play out.
What about if we picked something that had more to do with like prison sentences or bail reform, or something that something that doesn't affect you simply because you were born.
I got a great one, right in line with what you just said. It just came up in the SCOTUS hearings, sentencing of child pornography, the child pornography sentencing, where she was being taken to task for supposedly giving sentences that were too light under the quote unquote recommended sentencing structure, but apparently there were a lot of people who thought those recommendations were anyway too high and had to come down. But I think it's a fascinating question, and I don't really have a great answer, but I think the question of, do you put someone in prison who has pedophilia tendencies? That's a fascinating question, because especially if they haven't done a criminal act, what have they done? They've succumbed to pornography. Like who amongst us has not, does not get tickled by pornography? We're just lucky that pedophilia is not in our, the pornography we look at is quote unquote, kosher pornography, it's normal shit. But like, what happens if you're into like, if for whatever reason it turns you on that people getting killed, during, like you're into really dark stuff, but you don't do it. But yet it's so available there, it's almost impossible to avoid it. And I think that, I don't know if we're going to disagree so much as much as that's a fascinating debate, because I think people instinctively want to just call these people monsters and throw them away. Well, they haven't done anything yet. Is there some way, it's like they're like an alcoholic before they've run someone off the road. So I remember when I was listening to them, to the senators who are bringing up that, who are bringing that up against her. I wasn't, my first reaction about hearing like, oh, she's letting child pornographers, out after 3 months, I was like, oh, that's terrible. But then the more I thought about it, the more I said, like, what do we do? Like, how do you send those guys to jail? Like, or those, like, what exactly does jail do for them? And what does it do for us? And, so that's an interesting debate to have. Is that, by them viewing it, are they creating the market that people now go out and create this pornography, which is horrendous in the sense that it's children? Or are they sort of victims in the sense that it's out there and it's kind of like, putting a drink in front of an alcoholic?
Yeah, that one's interesting. If we want to do that or something similar, we'd probably be talking about, what's a reasonable, we'd have to say, one side is saying the sentence should be X or greater than X, and the other side would be saying less than X.
One side's calling it a mental health issue. One side's saying these guys are monsters. Throw the key away.
Yeah,
they're potential monsters. Yeah, they have a desire to do something that's unacceptable, which is a fascinating question, especially now that we're starting to like really, quote unquote, accept mental health.
mm-hmm. That one might be challenging for you to, I know you could take either side on that, but it sounds like you don't have a strong opinion on that, Zev.
No, I actually found myself arguing both sides of that. And it was interesting that this, before the SCOTUS hearings, I would have said like, oh yeah, throw the key away. Or, you just hear it, then you don't hear it, it's like when it's drummed into your head day in and day out, it forces you to think a little bit more broadly about it.
Were you about to say something, Stacey?
Well, I'm thinking in terms of sentencing and things like that, but I'm thinking more in terms of drug offenders, or what kind of sentences should they face? Well,
how about what we're living through right now with the with these whack job district attorneys that have come in and just like, and then nobody gets arrested for any thievery under $1,000 or just walking into grocery store. Like this new wave of, I understand that it's starting to turn back, but that's an interesting one. We can, I'm pretty convicted on that one.
Yeah, and I'm pretty much on the other side.
Okay, so you're okay with people being shoved off the train stations by people who should be in jail?
No, but I'm not okay with people being in jail only because they couldn't come up with the bail money.
Okay, but if they're a violent offender, why should they be out even if they could come up with the bail money?
They shouldn't.
So this makes no difference. This just says everybody, no bail. Don't matter what you did.
The way the bill is written.
You beat the shit out of your ex-wife, and you had 27 violent convictions. No problem. We let you out so you can go take your car and run over how many people in a parade.
Yeah, no, listen, but here's the thing. The way the bill is written, I think, is stupid. But that's the problem. There's never any like blending together of the two concerns. Like if you and I were to sit down and write a bill, I think we could do a much better job.
Right, but I disagree with you that the bill is the problem. I think the problem is the DAs. You have DAs coming in, and this is what they're not sitting there saying like, oh, I'm a prisoner to the bill. They're sitting there going like, hey, this is my conviction. This is my ideology. This is how I think. I think we should be letting all these people out.
Yeah, I have to check, but I don't think it applies to violent criminals. I haven't really paid attention for at least a year, but when I first looked into it, it did not apply to violent criminals.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. 20, 30 people walking into a store and each one, right? Understanding, looking, having a calculator in their head and going up and counting up to $1,000, making sure that they're under, they're in that $800 to $900 range, and then just walking out. You consider these people violent offenders, or no, they're cool?
Neither, and they should go to trial, but that doesn't mean that they should sit in a jail.
They're not even being arrested.
I don't know that. What are you talking about?
Right now in New York and California and a number of states, if you don't, for under $1,000, go check it out. I'm making this up.
Because I'm on my phone, but I will.
Okay, for under $1,000, then it's like it's not even worth the time to book them.
So what happens to them?
Nothing. That's why you have Dwayne Reed's and certain pharmacies closing in certain neighborhoods, and now those neighborhoods don't have stores anymore because they've just had too much thievery. If you go into the average Target, and you spend more than 4 minutes in certain areas, more than 4 minutes in Target, you were in the place where a crime took place.
Okay, I'd have to challenge what you're saying in terms of charges won't be pressed if it's under $1,000.
Okay, so go challenge it.
Well, show me the bill. Put a link in it.
Not the bill. Hold on. No, just go look up in San Francisco, Northern California, where what's his name over there, Gaston, what's his name? And Bragg. And
I have no idea what's going on in San
Alvin
Francisco.
Bragg, who's in there, go see if for $1,000 or less, they will arrest these people. They're literally, and here's the funny part. The private security that's being hired by these stores is not even allowed to physically stop them, because then they're committing a physical, they're physically violating, this good young person who's just taking under.
Talking about New York, I thought.
I'm talking about New York. I'm talking about California. Those are the two most obvious. I know Gaston and Bragg. Bragg had to walk back some of his stuff, but because he was pretty much going to get ousted, after 2 days of being in office. And by the way, the broken windows policy that everybody railed against, the mayor just in New York just reinstated it. He just said enough. He says, well, it didn't work undoing that, quote unquote, extremely hard tactic, quote unquote, racist, whatever. I mean, the point I'm getting to is this: when you talk about sentencing, it sounds great to say, hey, we should only throw violent offenders in jail. People who do lifestyle offenses, or they're just not great people or whatever, we shouldn't be throwing these people into jail. And that sounds great. And it makes a lot of sense on it. The only thing that we're not considering is, it's kind of like if you live on a block and everybody manicures their lawns, right? Is that your knock on the door?
Yeah, but I'm listening. I'm
Oh, you're
listening.
listening. Okay. So I'm saying, imagine like you live in a neighborhood and everybody by agreement, manicures their lawns. They take, the houses are attractive. They maintain a certain standard, some more, some less. Then all of a sudden you start having people moving in and, they do nothing. They're just like, their front yard is full of garbage and everything. That neighborhood is not staying the same too long. In other words, quality of life, the whole concept behind broken windows was, if people are bringing the standard and the quality of life down in a certain area, it's a gateway. Things, and it's all about inertia. Things either move in one direction or they move in the other direction. Nothing stands still. So to sit there and simply say, we're only going to take the worst of the worst and put them in jail, what you're basically saying is you're laying down a yardstick. You're saying, hey, you could do anything you want up until this line, and you're not going to jail. Well, what do you think is going to happen? You think people are going to sit there and say, well, we understand that line is a dramatic line. We're going to out of good conscience, be much better, behave well. That's the point I'm trying to make. And it's not a bill. It's like you can't put these hard legislative lines down for morality, because then you just take the decision out of the people's heads and you just let the wild run loose.
Bentley, if I could just interrupt, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I think you've gotten a good sense of Zev. You kind of I think you have a good sense of me. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe you could spend some time thinking and come up with something and offer it to us.
That is true.
Well, I think it does need to be something that I know both of you are fairly convicted, not like completely convicted about, but that you're both passionate about. It does sound like that something in the area of
Social justice.
well, or just laws. So I was kind of looking up. I had seen kind of the videos that Zev was talking about, and they were saying that in 2014, Proposition 47 in California reclassified nonviolent thefts as misdemeanors for stolen goods less than $950, and then their crime spiked. So I don't know actually what the dollar amount was before that, because it looks like there is a nonviolent thefts as misdemeanors. Does that mean that there was a dollar amount before?
No, it was just theft was theft. It wasn't a dollar amount.
Oh, so it's
You stole.
So I guess I don't know what the change was, because if they've always been, are they saying they made things as but there was a different dollar amount for what's a misdemeanor and what's not a misdemeanor.
Right, and the effect that it had was that you had these groups get together and collaborate. So if like 100 of them go in there, and that's why they were doing these smash and grabs. Everybody's taking less than $950, and then they're coming back to base, and collectively they've taken a whole lot.
Yeah,
but
so
all got away with it because nobody did more than $950.
So I think either that one or the bail one. So I think what would be interesting is if either Zev, you or Stacey look at either. So Zev, it could be a law change like that, and then your side could be saying they shouldn't have made this change, or we should not implement this change in other cities. Uh, or we could do the same thing about the bail, saying reducing bail for certain types of crimes, assuming that you two would have different opinions on the actual dollar amount and what it is.
Can I make a suggestion? I was just using that because I'm not sure that would be such a great one, because I think the reality is that experiment is kind of over. It was kind of like defund the police. I think sort of everybody has come back around, whether it's no longer a liberal conservative thing. I think it had its moment in the sun, and people are kind of seeing that the consequences have sort of put everybody back in the same camp. So I think no bail is not really I think something that's really deep rooted and where everybody's really convicted well, maybe like abortion and life and choice. That's something that everybody deals with.
Are you pro-choice or not?
No, I'm pro-life.
Oh, then we could debate that.
Well, you're
Pro-choice.
Are you pro-death? No. Before we do that, and the reason I think that's a good debate is twofold, because I think the two perspectives from which we call the pro-choice, the pro-life, they're fundamentally coming at it from two different sides. However, and it's one of those debates that's very hard to have a middle ground. Either you think you're killing something or you think something's a choice. I'm not really sure where the middle ground is in theory, although I have found middle ground. And then the other one I would say is the first interesting conversation me and you had, which was a Second Amendment, guns. Shoot them up.
No.
I like to go around killing people. You don't.
So I would prefer guns over abortion. The only thing is that abortion is so emotional that the virality of that discussion would kind of taint an experiment with something that is that electrifying would be a little too much for where we are in the process right now. So I kind of hope to stay away from abortion for a couple of years and then hit it when we know we have a process that kind of works.
All right. Guns is good.
So, yeah. And what I keep thinking about guns, this sounds horrible, but if we do something, the next time there's a school shooting, it'll go viral, which is an unfortunate reality. But now the interesting things about guns is that we need to kind of get specific. So I don't know if there's a gun law that is being passed or has been proposed that we could use as that one side would support, the other side would oppose. And also we could take that law as a basis and make changes to it. We're not limited by what, our silly government representatives have put together.
How about we start with what the Second Amendment is?
Yeah, so that's
I'd say you start at the source and then you build up.
I'm so tired of that.
I would say the Second Amendment is horribly written. The problem is that's kind of a definition debate, because then we argue about what does the Second Amendment mean. And I try and stay away from definition debates.
Okay.
Maybe something about, I think there are some laws right now in New York having to do with whether guns can be taken away and under what circumstances they could be taken away, something like that.
Or a gun registry required.
Mm-hmm.
That's another one, yeah. Are you for or against gun registry?
hold on.
mandatory.
I'm focused on.
Go ahead.
I'm just, if you want to get to the why
Mhm.
of a debate, which I agree, then the why to me starts with the Second Amendment and understanding why it was put in there and what it represents.
Well, there's a why, right? But there's the why before the Second Amendment, right? Not the amendment itself, which I guess is kind of what you're getting into. But I mean, I would rather debate. Like, I don't think getting into a discussion about what our founding fathers were thinking and trying to prove it through the federal papers and stuff like that of what they were thinking at the time. I don't think that's as useful as, which I think that would kind of get into, as a citizen should have the right to bear arms against their government if necessary. You know what I'm saying?
That's an interesting question. Was it to bear, if necessary, and or the government should not have the right to remove the citizen's ability to defend their home and property?
Yeah. So I would have actually prefer to kind of almost let's come with our own formulation than using the actual wording of the Second Amendment, to say kind of what right we think.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Going with the original premise of defense against the government because of their history, that's kind of dated, and I don't think that really applies today.
I got several friends that promote that. But
listen, you could see a scenario. You could see a scenario where that would happen. I mean, certainly what just happened with the Canadian truck drivers should have probably shaken everybody's, woken everybody up who really believes that the government's going to protect them at all times. I think very interesting. I think it's a crypto debate too. I mean, that the same spirit. It's a very similar debate going down, wouldn't you say?
Crypto, on like the government allowing crypto,
or the need for government being able to shut down wallets, bank accounts, sovereign, basically sovereignty. Is the government sovereign? Is the person sovereign? The individual sovereign? That's all. I've always felt that almost all the arguments we have for ultimately come down to sovereignty. Same thing, who's sovereign?
Yeah, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, but I mean, I kind of see it's always a balance between our individual freedoms and the limitations we place upon ourselves to be able to live next to each other.
Yes, social welfare. I agree. I agree that social welfare, when it's obvious, always wins out. That's
you can have freedom of speech, but yelling fire in a crowded auditorium, right?
Right. But but then when it comes to defining hate speech, well, that's not so obvious.
Right.
More than it's not being so obvious, it's like the first 10 words are easy.
Mm-hmm.
The next 10 are not so easy. And then the next 10 after that, it's like, well, no one's stopping. No one's ever going to stop and say, well, we're just going to choose 10. So,
so if we wanted to kind of think about the guns, I would like to see if either of y'all know of either a gun law that you would like to enact or repeal.
I'm pretty sure there's one coming up in New York. I can get that information. I just can't do it while I'm on the phone.
So yeah, that would be interesting, Zev, to see if you disagree with the pass of that law.
I don't know which law it is, but yeah.
So we could have Stacey send it out after we meet, and then see if we kind of like that. And we can also, if anyone feels like the law has some bad language in it, we could adapt it or strip out a lot of the stuff and just kind of give the top headline. It's helpful sometimes if it's the exact law, but it doesn't have to be. So that sounds like an interesting debate, unless y'all both happen to say, oh, it's a great law. So let's give
I
that
don't-
a try. We have
don't-
about 15 more minutes.
Yeah, I don't think I'd find anything restricting. I'll just say that I have a personal story. I remember when we had um, what was that? Sandy, was Sandy the big storm where we all lost power? And we were on generators. Now we live out in Rockland County, so it's pretty rural. But pretty much everybody was running on a generator. It was cold, and we had a couple of weeks where we didn't have any. If you don't have a generator, you're in tough shape. And there was some ingenious people. What they would do it at night. So, at night, because you're running a generator, so you make sure all the lights are off. Like there's nothing. The only thing it's running is your heat. So people were driving around with lawnmowers, and they would have the lawnmower running as they would drive up to your house. They would disconnect the generator, put it on their trailer, and they'd be gone before you knew that your generator had been taken. So we quickly got word, word quickly spread. And there were a bunch of us, like every fourth or fifth house, we took turns. We sat on and I remember sitting in my front yard with my shotgun, and every time you can see they were just driving by. They just had, I just wave at them, say, okay, if you think it's worth it, come get it. And the point is, when you have situations like that, there's no way you can call the police. The police can't stop this. And, there are moments when your home and property, you're it. No one else can protect you. And guess what? None of our generators were taken.
Yeah, that would definitely be one of the interesting. We'd probably have to figure out how to word that into a claim. And also kind of when we're putting these things together, if there's anything that you want to express that the format that Gullibot's in, because it's usually about a tweet size statement, doesn't seem to fit, then one of the interesting things would be getting on and kind of talking through it and figure out if the system's broken, like it doesn't allow this type of expression, or if we need to, or if there's a way to make it clear and concise.
Okay, so then I'd like to ask you one question to help me help you. Other than, like, let's say Stacey will find this law and she'll, I'll read it. We'll both read it, then we'll both provide our reaction. Then what do you need from us following that to help you? And how does this, and then what does it become other than me giving you my opinion, she giving you her opinion?
Yeah, so let me kind of show you what a debate looks like in the system. What we'll be eventually creating is what's called an argument tree. So should you get the COVID-19 vaccine? And this is outdated, so don't consider this conclusion accurate. And also Gullibot's a gullible robot. So when it says it has I'm confident 76%, that's just based on the facts that's been given. And that's the great thing about Gullibot. It has no preconceived biases at the beginning of the debate. Of course, the moment someone adds a claim, Gullibot has all the biases of that claim. But then the other side would come in, and that's what it is. It's all about challenging each other's biases. But then if you click this more info button, you can see all the facts that Gullibot has been given so far. The purple ones are pro, the orange ones are con, the main statement. And then each of these can also have children underneath it to say what they are. So this is what we'll be building. So what would happen is, you all would contact me with a claim, like for example, a vaccine will reduce the chance of you getting seriously sick due to COVID-19. So you would want to do that claim. Now, how you submit it to me, I did want to kind of talk you through. One is that I could give you all actual access to this system, and you could type it in and submit it. Another option is the way other people will kind of do this in the future is they'll be sending it to me over Twitter, and then I'll be putting it in the system. And then otherwise, any way you want to kind of get it to me, I can put it in for you, or you could put it in directly. And what it is, you would do 2 of those. Like, let's say Stacey was the purple team, so she was pro-COVID. I mean, pro-vaccine. Sorry. You would add in an orange in here. You could say the data reporting is really bad, and then you could also go into one of her claims and put in a con to here's the study that's showing that people are getting just as sick on even if they've had the vaccine. So that would be kind of the thing, and you would do that once, and then Stacey would put in her 2 claims. And maybe like doing 2 claims a day, if that's a good speed, that'd give you time to kind of absorb what the other person said and go and find some facts to add in.
Well, 2 a day, I think we might be a little. I don't know.
I have a possible topic. I have to know how Zev feels about this. Should we end qualified immunity?
What the hell's that?
That's cops not being held accountable, basically.
Oh, you mean like for what?
That's actually the law. I'll send you the law. That's
I know, but like not being held accountable for what?
You're not a citizen is not allowed to sue a cop, basically.
Yeah.
Or it's very difficult. Let's put it this way: the cop,
right?
The cop has to do something a lot worse than the rest of us have to do to get sued. That's true.
So it's protection from civil suits, and right. It's not absolute, but
it sounds great. It sounds great that a cop should be held to the same standard as everybody else. Like, right? Like, who can argue with such peerless logic? Except for here's your problem, Stacey. Who are you going to hire as cops now?
Well, this is why I'm thinking. This could be a good topic for us to debate.
Right. I'm saying who's going to protect you? Because I could tell you, like, if you're putting me out there in a situation where I'm guaranteed to be engaged in conflict on a fairly regular basis, right? You're not hiring cops to take care of the good people. You're hiring cops to take care of the people who are misbehaving. That guarantees me, if you hire me as a cop, that I'm going to be involved in conflict. And if you're going to tell me that I am going to be involved in conflict at a much greater degree than the average citizen, but yet I have to maintain the same standard as that average citizen.
So we can go into more details of when we get the debate up.
That would be a good debate.
Yeah. So let's keep that one in, and then Stacey, if you'd also find that law, and maybe we could look at both of those suggestions and see if either of y'all have a preference on which of those 2 topics. Right. But I think that that's a great area of disagreement that would be interesting and specific enough for us to work on.
And I will try to get back to you later this evening. Okay, I'm going to be busy for a little while now.
Zev, is there a way that you prefer communication? Is it really over email or Facebook messages, or I don't know if you're in any Slack channels? Do you have a preference?
Facebook could work. Email, I mean, the best way probably is WhatsApp. That I'll see all the time. I'll be happy to give you my number.
Yeah, that would be great. If you want to put it in the messages and not say it out loud. Stacey, are you on WhatsApp right now?
I'm not. So for me, it would be better most or email.
Did you get
It'd be nice.
Or Facebook.
We might just do. If you think it'd be nice if we're all 3 on the same thing. So yeah.
Because I know Zev is always on there.
On what?
Messenger, Facebook Messenger.
I believe it or not, I'm on it a lot. Because my phone is always on, and it's always on in my phone. It looks like I'm always on. I don't pay attention. But
you see it. You'll see it within a reasonable.
If we send you a message.
Yeah, well, right. But I get so many people I mean, I have so many people from Uganda and all other parts of the world trying to like send me love on Facebook Messenger every day. So I just like I let a lot of them just go before, but I'll look out for it. If you want to have like a group thing there.
Yeah, I'll create a group on Facebook, and then I'll also connect with you over WhatsApp. So if something's going on and I'm not hearing from you, I can just touch base with you.
All right. What do you have against
Um,
WhatsApp? What do you have against WhatsApp, Stacey? Maybe we should debate that.
I think
don't
she's
know.
probably just overwhelmed with channels like everyone else.
All right. Well, thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you both. I'll create a channel and we'll continue the discussion there, and then we'll schedule another time to kind of get together if we need to finalize again.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Okey-doke.